The morning air at the bus stop was crisp and biting, the kind of chill that made people pull their coats tighter around their bodies. A gentle breeze swept through the area, carrying with it the scattered whispers of fallen leaves as they danced along the sidewalk. The sun peeked through a veil of gray clouds, casting a dim glow that offered little warmth to the waiting passengers. Standing at the stop, people huddled together, some buried in their smartphones while others glanced anxiously down the street, hoping for the bus to arrive soon. The distant rumble of traffic created a constant hum in the background, blending with the occasional honk and the shuffling of feet on the pavement. A few children clutched their backpacks tightly, their cheeks pink from the cold air as they listened to their parents chat quietly. Among the group was Mark, a young man who always seemed to have a smile ready for anyone who crossed his path. Today, however, he was more aware of the chill than usual. He wrapped his arms around himself, hoping to keep his body heat in as he waited for his bus to arrive. Mark often took the same route each morning and couldn't help but notice how different it felt today. The air was crisp and smelled faintly of damp earth and distant wood smoke. As he shifted his weight from one foot to the other, something caught his eye. Just a few feet away from him, nestled against a lamppost, sat a small dog. Its fur was matted and soaked from a recent rain, and its shivering body told Mark everything he needed to know. It was cold and alone. The dog's big brown eyes were wide with fear as it glanced around, likely searching for a familiar face or warmth. Mark's heart sank at the sight. He had always loved animals and knew that he couldn't just stand by while this little creature suffered in silence. Stepping closer to it, he crouched down and extended his hand slowly so not to startle it. "Hey there," he whispered softly, attempting to calm it. The dog looked up at him, cautiously, but didn't move away. It seemed to sense that Mark meant no harm. The moment felt significant. In an ordinary day filled with ordinary moments, this one stood out like a bright star breaking through dark clouds. Mark quickly assessed his surroundings. Most people were preoccupied with their own thoughts or devices, oblivious to the little dog's plight. There wasn't much time. He could see that it needed help immediately. Feeling an unfamiliar sense of urgency, he unzipped his jacket. Without hesitation, he didn't think twice about how cold he would feel without it. All he could focus on was helping this vulnerable creature in front of him. Gently, he wrapped his jacket around the dog's shivering body, creating a cozy cocoon that provided immediate comfort. Mark could feel the tension in its frame begin to ease as the warmth enveloped it. "See, you're going to be okay?" he murmured softly as he stroked its head gently, feeling its tiny heart beating rapidly beneath the fabric. The dog looked up at him with gratitude shining in its eyes. A brief connection between two souls brought together by circumstance as Mark sat there on the cold concrete beside his borrowed warmth-wrapped companion. They both found solace in each other's company amidst the hustle and bustle around them. People continued to come and go at the bus stop, but now seemed less important than this moment. A moment where kindness bridged two lives, even if just temporarily. Suddenly, Mark noticed two women near him whispering excitedly as they pointed toward him and the dog. Their expressions were a mix of relief and concern as they searched for something. Perhaps they were looking for someone who owned this lost pet. Unbeknownst to Mark, this seemingly small act would soon spiral into an unexpected adventure that would change everything about his day, and maybe even his life, forever. As Mark knelt beside the shivering dog, he couldn't help but think about how many times he had been in a similar situation. He had always been someone who cared deeply for others, people and animals alike. From a young age, Mark's heart had drawn him toward helping those in need. Whether it was rescuing a stray cat stuck in a tree or standing up for a friend who was being teased, he was the person who would step forward when everyone else hesitated. Growing up in a small town, he learned the value of community and kindness early on. His parents instilled in him the belief that compassion was one of the most important qualities a person could have. They often volunteered at local shelters, bringing him along to help care for lost animals or serve food to those who needed it. These experiences shaped him into a thoughtful young man who saw the world through a lens of empathy. Mark worked at a local grocery store, where his cheerful demeanor earned him friends among customers and colleagues alike. He was known for his bright smile and the way he always offered assistance with a genuine heart. "Can I help you find something?" was often heard coming from his lips as he navigated the aisles, eager to lend a hand. He didn't see this as just a job. It was an opportunity to connect with others and make their days a little brighter. Despite his friendly nature, Mark sometimes felt lonely. Many of his coworkers were busy with their lives, and he found himself wishing for deeper connections beyond casual greetings. His passion for helping others made him crave real friendships based on mutual care and understanding. Animals, however, never let him down. They were uncomplicated companions who appreciated love without hesitation. The sight of the little dog nestled against the lamppost tugged at something deep within him. He remembered his childhood dog, Buddy, who had been by his side through thick and thin until old age caught up with him. The bond they shared had taught Mark lessons about loyalty and unconditional love that he carried with him to this day. As Mark wrapped his jacket around the trembling creature, warmth spread from where the fabric enveloped its body. He could see how nervous the dog was, its gentle brown eyes looking up at him as if trying to understand what was happening. In that moment, Mark felt not just empathy but also a responsibility. This tiny life depended on someone caring enough to make a change. "Don't worry," he whispered softly while stroking its head again. "You're safe now." The dog leaned into Mark's touch, seeking comfort from this stranger who offered kindness without asking for anything in return. While many at the bus stop remained wrapped up in their own lives, Mark found joy in this simple act of compassion. It reminded him that small gestures could have big impacts, like ripples spreading across water after throwing in a small stone. Unbeknownst to him, this act would not only warm the dog but eventually lead to something greater than himself. As he sat there, feeling connected with this frightened animal, Mark realized how important it was to be present in moments like these. Life often rushed by too quickly. People were too absorbed in their own worlds to notice those around them needing help or comfort. Here at this bus stop on an ordinary day, amidst hurried footsteps and distant sounds of traffic, both Mark and the little dog found solace together. A brief pause that seemed rare yet precious. Just then, two women approached with concerned looks on their faces. Perhaps they knew something about the lost pet or were searching for answers themselves. As they gestured toward Mark and the dog with expressions of relief mixed with urgency, he felt his heart race again. What could happen next? He wondered while still holding on to this newfound bond forged out of pure kindness. The day was far from over. Adventure awaited just around the corner. As Mark continued to kneel beside the small dog, he could hear the faint sounds of the city waking up around him. Cars passed by, their headlights illuminating the bus stop for brief moments while pedestrians hurried along the sidewalk, too preoccupied with their own agendas to notice the trembling creature huddled near him. The cold breeze seemed to cut through the morning fog, and Mark felt the shivering dog snug against his arms. Grateful for the warmth the jacket provided, he took a moment to observe the little dog more closely. It was a small breed, perhaps a mix of terrier with slightly curly fur that had clearly seen better days. The dark spots of dirt caught in its matted coat suggested it had been wandering alone for a while. Its big brown eyes were filled with uncertainty and fear, darting around nervously as if searching for a safe place to belong. Mark's heart ached at the sight. This little one felt lost and frightened. In that moment, a rush of determination washed over him. He didn't want to simply wrap his jacket around the dog and leave it alone again. He needed to find out who it belonged to or what had happened to lead it here, so helpless by itself. The gentle eyes of the dog gazed back at him, and without saying anything, it felt as though they were sharing an understanding that transcended words. Mark reached down and scratched behind the dog's ears, trying to soothe its nerves. "You must be so scared," he murmured, feeling like they were both living in their own worlds of worry. The dog leaned into his hand, pressing closer for comfort as if to signal that it understood him. They shared a connection. The scared little creature found solace in Mark's presence, while Mark drew courage from the dog's resilience. He carefully examined the area around them, hoping to spot any sign of the dog's owner nearby. Maybe someone had been looking for it, calling its name or wandering about in search of their lost companion. However, except for the two women he noticed earlier whispering among themselves, no one seemed to care about the tiny creature in distress. "Hey," Mark said tentatively to the women, who had been watching him with concerned expressions. "Do either of you know this pup?" He gestured toward the dog, whose thin body curled up against him for warmth. Instinctively, he braced himself for their response, hoping they would shed some light on what to do. One of the women stepped forward, her brow furrowing as she leaned down to inspect the small animal more closely. "I think I've seen it around here before," she said quietly. I think it might belong to someone who works at the grocery store nearby. Her voice held a hint of recognition as she reached out a hand cautiously toward the dog. Mark felt a bloom of hope at her words. Really? Do you remember who? He asked eagerly, his mind racing with possibilities. Perhaps he would get to reunite this sweet furball with its owner and make everything right. Before she could reply, the second woman pointed toward the grocery store across the street. I've seen them walk past here every morning. She looked at Mark expectantly. But we should make sure. It may be lost and need help now. Mark was grateful that someone else was as invested in helping as he was. Together they could figure this out. He turned his attention back to the shivering pup in his arms, trying to muster some additional warmth with his hands as he pondered what steps to take next. Just then, an idea sparked in Mark's mind. What if we go in and ask around? Maybe someone will recognize this little one. He could feel excitement bubbling up within him at the thought of getting involved in this unexpected adventure. The chance seemed to light a fire in his heart. The feeling of possibility surged like adrenaline through his veins. With renewed purpose, he gently lifted the little dog back into his arms, ready to brave the world beyond the bus stop with determination. Whatever followed would surely bring new encounters and experiences. He just hoped they would lead them closer to finding this faithful friend's rightful home. Holding on to that thought tightly, he headed toward the grocery store, ready to make a difference as Mark crouched beside the shivering dog. He felt a rush of compassion wash over him. The dog's fragile frame trembled from the cold, and for a moment, nothing else mattered to him but providing comfort. He glanced down at his own jacket, a warm and well-worn piece that he cherished for its coziness on chilly days like this. Without a second thought, he unzipped it and quickly slipped it off his shoulders. Here you go, little buddy, he whispered as he gently wrapped the jacket around the dog. He made sure to cover its back and sides securely, creating a small cocoon of warmth. The moment the soft fabric touched the dog's matted fur, Mark could see its body relax a little. The tremors gradually eased as the dog nestled into the warmth, its trusting eyes gazing up at him with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Mark couldn't help but smile at the sight, and in that instant, he felt like a hero in a fairy tale, rescuing a creature in need. He understood that this dog had likely faced challenges and fears of its own. Wandering alone in search of safety and love, he wished he could speak to it, reassure it that everything would be all right, and that it would never have to be alone again. As he sat there on the cold concrete with the dog resting against him, Mark began to think about the power of simple acts of kindness. He remembered how, as a child, he'd often helped stray animals find their way home or provided food for them when they looked hungry. Each small action had made a difference in their lives, just as this one was making a difference for the shivering pup before him. Around them, life continued at the bus stop. People came and went, rushing to catch their rides and lost in their own thoughts. But here was Mark, wrapped in a shared moment with this little creature who needed help. They both felt an unspoken bond growing stronger between them. The dog, accepting Mark's warmth while Mark's heart swelled with compassion. Suddenly, Mark noticed how the dog's demeanor had shifted. It now leaned into him fully, resting its head on his knee as if to say thank you in its own way. The trust was palpable. The dog was no longer just a frightened animal but now an ally, a companion bound to him by warmth and kindness. Despite the chill still hanging in the air, Mark felt a surge of warmth within himself from this act of generosity. He realized that his decision to remove his jacket wasn't just about helping the dog physically. It was about forming a connection that transcended words and differences. This small moment at the bus stop was more than merely one person helping another. It was about compassion that fostered hope. That as he turned to look around again, determined not to let this pup's journey end here, he spotted those two women watching from a little distance away. They had been observing quietly, their expressions shifting from concern to curiosity. He wondered what they might do next as they exchanged glances between each other and the dog. Mark felt like their presence might be important. Perhaps they held vital information about the dog's owner or any surrounding circumstances, fueled by determination, and now buoyed by his deepening connection with the little creature. He decided it was time to approach them again. All right, he said softly to himself while gently petting the warm bundle next to him. Let's see if we can find out where you belong. Taking one last look at his jacket snugly wrapped around the pup, he gathered his courage and stood up slowly. Excuse me, Mark called out as he marched over to the two women with purpose. He needed to connect not only with them but also find answers that would lead to this sweet dog's homecoming. With hope lighting his eyes and renewed energy coursing through him, he approached them ready for whatever might come next. It was clear that this day would hold surprises for both him and this newfound friend. As Mark wrapped his jacket around the shivering dog, he could immediately tell that something had shifted. The little creature, which moments before had been trembling uncontrollably, began to relax as the warmth enveloped it. He seemed as if the cold had retreated from the dog's spirit, replaced by a newfound sense of safety and comfort. Mark watched in awe as the dog's body language transformed before his eyes. The deep frown of apprehension on its face faded, replaced by a gentle expression of relief. Its big brown eyes softened, gazing up at Mark with an almost profound gratitude. This connection was beautiful, a silent promise that they were no longer alone in their struggles. The moment the jacket settled around its fur, Mark noticed the dog's tail begin to wag slowly at first. It was just a tentative flick, but then it gained momentum, wagging with increasing enthusiasm as if the simple act of kindness had reignited a spark within. The sound of its tail thumping softly against the concrete made Mark smile. It was music to his ears. "See, you're going to be okay?" he whispered soothingly, feeling a wave of joy wash over him. The dog responded to his voice, leaning closer against him and nuzzling into the fabric of his jacket. Mark could feel its small body warming up. With each passing second, the warmth seemed to spread like the first rays of sunshine breaking through a cloudy morning. The little dog's tail continued to wag with exuberance now, the rhythm increasing until it resembled a cheerful dance in celebration of newfound warmth. It lifted its head slightly, resting it upon Mark's knee with an affectionate sigh that spoke volumes. This simple gesture of trust touched Mark deeply. He felt as though he had been given a precious gift in return for his kindness. For Mark, this experience was a reminder of how small actions could have significant impacts. Each wag of the dog's tail filled him with purpose and reaffirmed his belief in unconditional love. He realized that comfort could come from unexpected places, from a gentle touch or a warm embrace, transforming fear into hope in a matter of moments. As people continued to rush past them at the bus stop, completely unaware of the bond forming between man and dog, Mark took a pause to reflect on this unique connection. In a world where individuals often felt isolated in their problems, here he was sharing warmth with another being who understood vulnerability. The little dog seeking shelter from the storm outside. Then came an unexpected sound, a soft whimper that slipped from the dog's lips as if expressing gratitude for everything that had just unfolded. It lifted its chin and made direct eye contact with Mark, and for a fleeting moment, he thought he saw recognition in those puppy dog eyes, as if the dog sensed that Mark would protect it from any further discomfort. In that brief exchange, time seemed to stand still. There was no rush or pressure from the outside world, just two souls connecting across barriers they both felt. The chill of loneliness giving way to warmth and companionship. Mark couldn't help but feel a swell of happiness at this moment. Even with uncertainties about what would happen next or whether they would find this pup's owner soon enough, he knew they were together for this moment. Their connection anchored him even more firmly in the present. Eager to maintain this newfound bond while unraveling the mystery of the dog's owner, Mark gently scratched behind its ears as he planned his next steps. "We've got to find your family," he murmured softly, still in a state of wonderment about how much joy this moment had brought him. He felt an urgency now, to not only help this dog, but to ensure it returned safely home. With renewed determination sparking inside him, Mark gathered the little dog close one last time before preparing to rise and seek answers from those around them. He wanted this day to lead somewhere meaningful. Not just for himself but also for his newfound furry friend, whose heart now beat in harmony with his own after sharing such tender warmth amidst an otherwise frosty morning. With the little dog nestled comfortably against him, Mark felt a surge of determination. The warmth spread between them anchored his spirit amid the crisp morning air. However, just as he planned to approach the two women for help, a conversation nearby caught his attention. "I swear I saw a little dog like that around here this morning," one woman said, her voice tinged with concern as she leaned closer to her companion. "I hope someone finds it soon." It looked lost and scared. Mark's heart raced at the familiarity of their words. Could they be talking about the very dog curled up beside him? His curiosity piqued. He subtly shifted closer, focusing on their discussion. "Yeah, I heard it belongs to someone who works at the grocery store," replied the second woman, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear while glancing around. "Her name is Daisy. I can't believe she wandered off." Mark's mind buzzed with questions. Could this little pup be named Daisy? He had never thought much about how pets taken from home could end up lost in the big, bustling world outside. The odds were both terrifying and heartbreaking. The thought brought tears to his eyes as he stroked the dog gently. Deciding to seize the moment, Mark spoke up. "Excuse me, are you talking about this little dog?" He gestured toward the pup resting against him, careful not to disturb its newfound comfort. Both women turned their attention to him, eyes widening with surprise and hope intertwined. "Oh my gosh, yes!" exclaimed the first woman, stepping closer to get a better look. "That's definitely her." The little dog lifted its head at the sound of their excitement and wagged its tail energetically once again. Sensing the commotion around it seemed to know something important was happening, and Mark felt a glimmer of joy spark in his heart. "Are you sure this is Daisy?" he asked, feeling an urge to protect the pup but also eager for confirmation. "Yes," said the second woman confidently. "She has a little tag on her collar. If you check it, we can be certain it's her." Mark nodded earnestly. He had avoided checking earlier out of concern for startling Daisy again, but now it felt necessary. This girl deserved to be reunited with her owner. Gently sliding his hand under the coat of his jacket, he felt for the collar as he touched fabric. Daisy perked up further, excitedly nudging into him like she knew something wonderful was about to happen. Mark found himself smiling as he flipped over a small plastic tag hanging from her collar. Engraved in neat letters were the words Daisy, along with a phone number beneath it. "This is it. It says Daisy," he announced with glee, looking back at the women for acknowledgement. Their faces lit up with relief and joy. "Oh, thank goodness!" they shouted in unison, visibly thrilled at this new revelation. "We should call her owner right away." In that moment of connection that unfolded not only between Mark and Daisy but also with the two women, something shifted within him. The uncertainty from before began to dissipate as hope grew stronger. While one of the women pulled out her phone to make the call, Mark glanced down at Daisy again, noticing how intensely she radiated joy and trust as she soaked in all this new energy surrounding them. Her eyes sparkled with genuine happiness as they all gathered around her like tiny stars, circling a bright sun. Mark couldn't shake off this sense of unity. Three people who had never met before banding together for one tiny dog's well-being. It felt amazing to be part of something bigger than simply himself or even just this little encounter at the bus stop. It was about compassion weaving through their lives in unexpected ways. "Okay, I'm calling now," said one of the women, urgency lacing her voice as she pressed a few buttons on her phone. Even as anticipation thrummed through everyone present, Mark felt comforted knowing Daisy would soon see her family again. "What do you think your owner will say?" he asked curiously while they waited for connection on the line. Each tick of time echoed with excitement coursing through him in waves. There was magic sprouting from such simplicity, a reminder that love can be manifested through acts of kindness and empathy. "Hopefully something joyful," one woman replied happily as possibilities danced among them all. The next breaths felt profound, like pause before great expectation, but still enveloped by warmth that made every single moment feel meaningful and nostalgic. As they anxiously awaited news about baby Daisy's journey back home, as the anticipation in the air thickened, Mark watched with eager eyes as one of the women dialed Daisy's owner's number. The moment felt electric, filled with hope and anxious excitement. While they waited, Mark stroked Daisy's fur gently, feeling the warmth radiating from her body as she nestled closer. Suddenly, the woman holding the phone clasped it to her ear, her expression shifting from casual excitement to a look of concern. "Hi there! I think we have your dog," she said, her voice ringing clear in the crisp morning air. Mark leaned in closer, hanging on every word. "Really? Oh my gosh!" came a voice from the other end of the line. "Thank you so much, where are you?" Mark's heart raced as he listened intently to the conversation unfolding in front of him. The women exchanged glances filled with excitement while Daisy remained blissfully unaware of the significance unfolding around her. But then came a twist that caught Mark completely off guard. The woman spoke again, You work at the grocery store? Oh, do you know if, is your name Angela? Mark's stomach dropped as he processed this information. Angela was his boss, the owner of the grocery store where he worked part-time. He had always admired her dedication and kindness, but had never connected that she might be worried about her own pet. When Daisy's owner confirmed it was indeed her beloved dog they were talking about, Mark's world tilted slightly. He quickly realized that by wrapping his jacket around Daisy and caring for her without knowing who she belonged to, he had inadvertently become part of a situation that now felt much larger than himself. "Okay, we'll be at the bus stop near your store," one of the women said before hanging up. She turned to Mark with bright eyes. "It's Angela's dog. She'll be here soon." Mark's heart pounded faster. Not only was he helping reunite Daisy with her owner, but he was also about to face his boss. Would she be grateful? Would she question why he had taken such an interest in a lost pet? A wave of apprehension washed over him as he contemplated how his actions might be perceived. "We should get Daisy ready," said the first woman excitedly, kneeling down beside Mark to pet Daisy affectionately. "She'll be so happy to see her mom." As they prepared for Angela's arrival, Mark couldn't shake off his worries. What if Angela thought he had taken liberties by caring for Daisy without permission? He hadn't meant any harm. All he wanted was to provide comfort for a frightened animal in need. Still, doubts crept into his mind like shadows. What if this moment affected his job? The two women chatted animatedly about their own pets and how they would feel if they went missing. Their laughter contrasted sharply with Mark's thoughts as he wrestled with uncertainty about how this encounter would change everything for him at work. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of waiting and worrying, Mark spotted a familiar face approaching through the crowd. A woman with dark hair tied back neatly and glasses perched on her nose. It was Angela. Her expression shifted from one of concern to relief as she spotted Daisy nestled against Mark. "Daisy!" she cried out, rushing toward them with open arms. The bond between them was instantly apparent. Daisy perked up at the sound of her name, tail wagging furiously as she jumped down from Mark's lap and dashed toward Angela. Mark watched in awe as Angela knelt down to embrace her pet tightly, relief flooding over her features. "Oh, my sweet girl! I was so worried." For a moment, time stood still as he observed this joyful reunion, the love between owner and pet palpable in the air around them. Angela turned back toward Mark and flashed a warm smile. "Thank you so much for taking care of her." Her gratitude radiated like sunshine cutting through clouds on a dreary day. "Of course," Mark stammered out nervously while trying to process this unexpected connection between them now that he had been revealed as Daisy's caretaker. "Can I ask how you found her?" Angela continued with genuine curiosity. As they started talking about Daisy's little adventure that led up to this moment, Mark felt his worries begin to fade away like mist evaporating under a bright sun. His kind heart had led him here today not just to help a lost dog, but also toward newfound respect from someone he admired greatly, and this unexpected encounter filled with warmth and joy. It became clear that sometimes acts of kindness could lead not only to heartfelt reunions, but also open doorways into deeper connections. Connections that could change everything moving forward. The atmosphere at the bus stop buzzed with anticipation as Mark, Daisy, and the two women waited for the bus to arrive. Mark's heart raced not just from excitement about Daisy's reunion with her owner, but also from a mix of anxiety about facing his boss. He kept glancing down at Daisy, who was now resting peacefully, her tail thumping against the ground every once in a while as she soaked in the love and attention surrounding her. "Do you think she'll be okay?" one of the women asked, breaking the silence and startling Mark from his thoughts. She was kneeling beside Daisy, stroking her soft fur gently. "Oh, I'm sure she will be," Mark replied, forcing a smile through the whirlpool of emotions swirling in his mind. "She has you two looking out for her, and I'm just glad I could help keep her warm." Just then, a familiar sound echoed through the air. The unmistakable rumble of the bus approaching. Mark's gaze shifted instinctively toward the street, excitement bubbling inside him like soda fizzing in a freshly opened can. The bus lumbered around the corner, its headlights cutting through the morning mist as it came into view. But as it drew closer, Mark felt a strange hesitation welling up within him. The bus would bring Angela, but it would also mean returning Daisy to her, something he had been looking forward to but now filled him with lingering doubt. What if Angela was upset that he had taken an interest in her lost pet? Would she think he overstepped? Would she see him differently after today? Or would she be grateful? Mark's thoughts raced like the wheels of the approaching bus rolling over the pavement as he tightened his grip around Daisy. He felt a strong urge to protect her, not just from the cold but also from uncertainties that lay ahead. He wanted to keep this moment special, to hold on to the warmth they had built together amidst all of today's chaos. The two women stood up excitedly as the bus came to a halt just in front of them. Its doors swung open with a whoosh, revealing passengers inside who were oblivious to the significance of this small moment taking place at their stop. "Here we go!" one of the women exclaimed enthusiastically, turning toward Mark with a bright smile. "This is it?" Mark nodded slowly, still caught in his web of worries. "Do we really have to put her back on the bus?" he questioned softly, more to himself than to anyone else. Daisy moved slightly at his words, nudging closer to him while letting out a gentle whimper as if sensing Mark's conflict in that moment. He understood. Her safety and happiness were paramount. She needed to be with her rightful owner, where she belonged. "Yes, we do," he finally said aloud, determination creeping into his voice as he held her gently. "She deserves to be home with Angela." As he stepped forward, the weight of responsibility pressed against his chest like a heavy stone. He had wrapped his jacket around Daisy and offered her comfort without knowing everything about her life. He felt like he'd created a bond that transcended connection in this short time. But now it was time to let go and return this innocent creature where she truly belonged. The women watched with encouraging smiles as he walked towards the open bus doors, Daisy nestled securely in his arms. The kindness and warmth he had shared were still tangible. It was time to hand off that light back to her owner. Just then, he spotted Angela stepping off the bus, her relieved face lighting up as she caught sight of Daisy in that instant. All doubts evaporated like morning dew under sunlight. The bond they shared, a combination of care and compassion, brought everything rushing back into focus. "Daisy!" Angela shouted joyfully, racing forward as if time had taken on a magical quality, slowing down just for them. The connection was instantaneous. Daisy jumped from Mark's arms and dashed into Angela's embrace, tail wagging furiously, barking happily. Mark's heart swelled as he witnessed their joyful reunion. The love that spilled over making everything worth it. His fears faded away completely, replaced by a sense of fulfillment that washed over him like warm waves breaking on a beach. "Thank you so much for taking care of her," Angela said breathlessly once she had knelt down to cuddle Daisy close again. "Of course," Mark replied warmly, genuinely relieved now that Daisy was safely home. This moment became not just about returning a lost pet, but also a pivotal life lesson for Mark. One that solidified kindness in his heart while reminding him how powerful human connections could be when fueled by compassion and understanding. As he watched them together, he felt fulfilled knowing that sometimes letting go could lead to something even greater. A reminder of love's resilience in moments of uncertainty. As Mark stood at the bus stop, watching the joyful reunion between Daisy and Angela unfold, he felt a whirlwind of emotions battling within him. The warmth of fulfillment was undeniable, yet it was tinged with an undercurrent of anxiety and uncertainty. He had done the right thing by caring for Daisy, but now that the moment had arrived to hand her over, Mark found himself grappling with a cascade of thoughts. What if Angela was unhappy with him for taking care of the dog? After all, he hadn't asked for permission. He had simply acted on instinct. The doubt lingered in his mind like an unwanted shadow, creeping in and making him question the validity of his good intentions. He wanted to be viewed as responsible and compassionate, not someone who overstepped boundaries. Would this single act of kindness overshadow his role as a diligent employee? Mark's heart raced as he watched Angela kneel beside Daisy, looking radiant as she pulled her furry companion into a tight embrace. The sheer joy on her face served as a stark reminder of why he had stepped forward in the first place. Daisy needed help, and his instinct to protect had kicked in without hesitation. Still, that protective instinct clashed with feelings of fear about what this moment meant for his relationship with his boss. Was it really worth it? He pondered quietly to himself. He believed in the power of kindness and felt passionate about helping animals in need. But standing amid the chaos of emotions, Mark began to question whether this experience would ultimately be positive for him or if it might even cost him his job. But then another thought crept in. Maybe this moment could be a bridge rather than a barrier. What if Angela saw this act of compassion as evidence of qualities she valued, empathy and responsibility? Perhaps instead of viewing him as someone who meddled in her personal life, she would see him as someone who cared deeply and acted out of love for an animal in distress. Mark's mind shifted back to his childhood lessons about kindness from his parents. They had always emphasized that true compassion often requires stepping outside one's comfort zone. What if Angela appreciated that he had taken the initiative to care for her lost dog? Wouldn't that resonate with her own values as a pet owner? Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Mark realized there was no turning back now. He had already crossed this bridge by caring for Daisy so deeply. It wasn't just about returning a lost pet. It was also about showing Angela that he was capable of kindness beyond mere obligation. This moment could redefine their relationship, not just as boss and employee but also as two individuals who shared a common love for animals. As he watched Angela smother Daisy with love, Mark felt a renewed sense of determination surge through him. He would approach her openly and honestly, ready to share how much supporting Daisy had meant to him. It was essential that she understood what motivated him, the impulse to protect those who couldn't speak for themselves. Just then, Angela turned toward Mark with sparkling eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you so much for taking care of my sweet girl," she exclaimed again, her voice brimming with emotion. "Of course," Mark replied earnestly, feeling the warmth spread through him at her words. "I couldn't just leave her shivering out here alone. Your kindness means so much," she said genuinely, causing Mark's heart to soar in that moment, as they locked eyes amidst laughter and joy from Daisy's reunion. All his earlier fears melted away. He realized that this journey had created not just another day at work, but also a meaningful connection rooted in compassion. A bond neither of them had expected but truly appreciated. Mark understood then that sometimes making decisions involves facing uncertainty head-on. He felt reassured that true acts of kindness can open doors instead of closing them. They can create opportunities for understanding and connection where one might least expect it. With newfound confidence blossoming within him, Mark took a step closer to Angela and Daisy, ready to embrace whatever would come next. Whether it meant building a stronger working relationship or simply sharing their mutual love for animals moving forward. In that instant, he recognized how powerful and necessary moments like these are in shaping one's character while fostering deeper connections with others around you. As the joy of Daisy's reunion filled the air, Mark felt a rush of relief wash over him. He had been worried about how Angela would react, but her gratitude made it clear that he had done the right thing. Still, his mind raced with thoughts about how to handle the next steps. He knew he needed to return Daisy safely to her home, and in doing so, he also wanted to explain everything that had happened during their unexpected adventure. After the emotional moment had settled, Mark gently approached Angela and Daisy. "I'm really glad she's back with you," he said, his voice steady but warm. "I just wrapped her up in my jacket and tried to keep her warm until we found you." Angela smiled at him, her eyes shining with appreciation. "Thank you for taking care of her," she replied, gently scratching Daisy behind the ears. The little dog seemed to bask in the attention and affection from both of them. "I was worried sick." Mark chuckled lightly, feeling a sense of camaraderie with Angela as they shared this moment together. "She was shivering when I found her," he explained. "When I saw her alone by the lamppost, I just couldn't leave her there." "Of course. I totally understand," Angela nodded empathetically. "Daisy is such a sweet girl, but she can be a little adventurous sometimes." She laughed softly, brushing Daisy's fur back affectionately as they spoke. Mark's thoughts drifted back to the grocery store where he worked part-time. He realized that returning Daisy to her owner was just a part of what he wanted to achieve today. He also hoped to strengthen his relationship with Angela beyond their usual interactions at work. He wanted to show her that he was not only responsible but cared deeply about animals and their well-being. "Maybe we should take Daisy back to the store together," Mark suggested, feeling a newfound determination welling up inside him. "I can help you carry her if she gets tired." "That sounds like a great idea," Angela responded enthusiastically. She looked down at Daisy, who seemed content and alert in her arms, ready for whatever adventure awaited them next. Mark took a step closer as they began walking toward the grocery store. The crisp morning air felt refreshing as they strolled side by side, sharing light conversation about how Daisy had gotten lost in the first place. It was comforting for Mark to see how naturally their dialogue flowed. It felt less like a boss-employee relationship and more like two friends discussing a shared experience. Along the way, they passed familiar landmarks. The bakery on the corner where Mark loved to grab fresh pastries and the park where many families played on weekends. With each step closer to the store, Mark felt more confident. This small act of kindness had opened doors for him that he hadn't anticipated. As they reached the grocery store entrance, Mark hesitated briefly, taking a moment to gather his thoughts before speaking again. "I hope you don't mind me taking care of Daisy without asking first," he admitted sheepishly. "I just saw her there all alone and, well, it felt right." Angela paused and looked at him thoughtfully before breaking into another smile. "What you did was incredibly kind, Mark," she said sincerely. "Not everyone would have taken that initiative. This shows me your character." Her words resonated deeply with him, filling him with warmth and gratitude. He realized then that his instincts had guided him correctly. Not only had he helped a vulnerable animal, but he had also forged a connection based on compassion and understanding with someone he admired. As they walked inside the store together, Mark felt invigorated by this unexpected journey that began with an innocent encounter at the bus stop. He looked down at Daisy once more. She was now happily wagging her tail as if she knew she was safe and loved again. With renewed purpose, Mark decided that today would be more than just about reuniting a lost dog with its owner. It would be about building relationships and embracing moments that lead to deeper connections in life. Each step forward held promise as he prepared himself for whatever came next in this wonderful tapestry of unexpected events woven together by kindness and compassion. As Mark stood beside Angela, he watched her joyfully embrace Daisy, who was practically dancing in her arms. That was a heartwarming scene. The kind that made the world feel just a little brighter. Mark felt a sense of pride swelling within him as he observed their reunion unfold, the culmination of his earlier efforts to help the frightened dog find her way home. "Look at you, you little adventurer," Angela exclaimed, her voice filled with relief and affection. She cradled Daisy close, showering her with kisses while the pup squirmed happily, tail wagging like a tiny propeller. Mark couldn't help but smile at the sight. The love between them was palpable, radiating warmth and happiness. Angela turned back to him, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. "I can't believe you found her. Thank you so much for taking care of Daisy," she said, her voice tinged with emotion. "I was worried sick when I realized she was missing." Mark felt a flush of warmth spread through him at her words, a mix of relief and pride washing over him. "I just wrapped her up in my jacket to keep her warm until we found you," he explained, feeling a little sheepish but mostly happy to share what he had done for Daisy. "Oh, that jacket must have been so cozy." Angela laughed lightly, reaching out to touch the fabric as if it held some magic power. "You really went above and beyond, Mark. You're truly a lifesaver." Her sincerity made his heart swell even more. The weight of his earlier worries felt lighter now, as if they had been lifted by her kind words. Mark glanced down at Daisy, who was now basking in all the attention. She seemed completely unaware of the anxiety she had caused earlier and only focused on the love being showered upon her. The energy around them felt charged with happiness, and in that moment, Mark realized that he had played a part in creating this joy. "Honestly, I couldn't leave her alone," Mark said earnestly. "When I saw her shivering by the lamppost, I just knew I had to help." He wanted Angela to understand that his intentions were pure and rooted in compassion. "I truly appreciate it," Angela said warmly, her expression softening. "It's not always easy to find someone willing to step in and help an animal in need." There was an earnestness in her voice that struck a chord within him. For a moment, they stood together, Mark, Angela, and Daisy, wrapped in an atmosphere filled with warmth and gratitude. Mark felt a connection growing between them, one that extended beyond their roles at work. He sensed that this experience had forged something deeper, a shared understanding of compassion and responsibility. As they began to walk back toward the grocery store together, Mark could feel his confidence growing. This experience had transformed their relationship from a simple employer-employee dynamic into something more meaningful. "Would you like me to help you carry her back?" he offered as they walked along the sidewalk. Sure, Angela replied with enthusiasm, handing Daisy over to Mark gently. She can get a bit heavy if we walk too far. Daisy settled comfortably in Mark's arms, snuggling up against him as if she knew she was safe again. Mark held onto her securely, feeling the warmth radiating from Daisy and the joy of helping someone in need as they approached the grocery store entrance. Mark noticed how Angela's demeanor shifted slightly. She looked proud as customers passed by them admiringly on their way into the store. He realized then that this wasn't just about returning a lost pet. It was also about how acts of kindness could reshape perceptions and foster connections among people. When they entered the store, several co-workers greeted them with friendly smiles and curious glances at Daisy, who was now clearly stealing the spotlight. Look who's back, Mark announced playfully as he carried Daisy into view. The cheerful atmosphere inside the store contrasted sharply with his initial anxieties about facing Angela. Instead of worrying about possible consequences at work, he felt fully embraced by the camaraderie of those around him. Thank you again for caring for her, Angela said again as they moved deeper into the store. I think I owe you lunch or coffee sometime. Mark blinked in surprise at her offer. It felt like the perfect way to celebrate not only Daisy's return but also the friendly bond they were starting to build together. I'd love that, he replied genuinely as they walked further into the store with Daisy safely nestled between them. Mark felt invigorated by this unexpected journey. It had shown him that sometimes taking action out of kindness can lead to wonderful connections and open doors to new friendships, reminding him how crucial it is to be compassionate and brave in moments when it truly matters. As Mark walked alongside Angela and Daisy, the cheerful atmosphere of the grocery store wrapped around them like a warm hug. The air buzzed with friendly chatter and laughter, but within Mark, there was a different kind of energy. A deep sense of satisfaction and newfound respect blossoming between him and Angela. After their shared experience, an unspoken bond had formed that transcended the simple hierarchy of their workplace. Mark reflected on how unexpected moments like these could shift relationships in a meaningful way. Angela's gratitude for his actions had opened a door to a more personal connection, one that was built on mutual appreciation and understanding. Can you believe how much Daisy loves attention? Mark said, chuckling as Daisy sniffed around, her tail wagging energetically at every person who passed by. It felt reassuring to engage in casual conversation with Angela, as if they were friends rather than just employer and employee. Angela smiled warmly, her eyes sparkling. I think she's soaking it all up after being so worried, she replied playfully. You really have a special way with animals, Mark. Her compliment struck him like sunlight breaking through clouds. It filled him with warmth and made him feel proud in past interactions. Mark had always regarded Angela with a mixture of admiration and nervousness. She was not just his boss but also someone he respected for her leadership and dedication. However, now that he had shown his compassionate side, he sensed that she saw him in a new light. This shift created an opportunity for a more authentic relationship, one built on shared values. Rather than just professional duties, as they continued walking through the store, Mark felt empowered to share more about himself. You know, I've always been passionate about helping animals, he said candidly. Growing up, I volunteered at shelters and even fostered some pets. It's something that means a lot to me. Angela nodded appreciatively. That's wonderful. We need more people like you in this world. Her words resonated with him, reinforcing the idea that he had made the right choice by stepping in to help Daisy. It wasn't just about the dog. It was about embracing compassion in everyday life. Daisy trotted confidently beside them, her spirit lifted by the warmth of the reunion and the joy radiating from both of her humans. As they walked past displays of fresh fruits and baked goods, Mark overheard his co-workers commenting on the trio. Look at those three. You'd think they were a family. That comment struck a chord within him. In many ways, they were creating a little family right there in the store. A community bound together by kindness and care for animals. The realization filled Mark with optimism. This experience had brought them closer together through shared compassion. Angela glanced at Mark with an encouraging smile as they reached the checkout area. Have you ever thought about getting involved with local animal shelters? I know some places are always looking for volunteers. Her suggestion sparked excitement within him. Perhaps this was an avenue he could explore further. I'd love to. I've been wanting to find ways to give back, Mark responded enthusiastically. This new conversation opened up possibilities he hadn't considered before. Their shared love for animals now served as a bridge connecting them beyond their professional relationship. After paying for some treats for Daisy, they finally approached the exit. The sunlight poured into the store as they stepped outside, filling the air with warmth, echoing their shared gratitude and joy. Daisy danced happily at their feet as if she knew she was home again. "Thank you again for today," Angela said sincerely as they reached the parking lot. "I'm truly grateful for your kindness." Her words carried weight, not just gratitude but acknowledgement of who he was becoming through this experience. "You're welcome," Mark replied earnestly. "It was my pleasure to help." As Daisy bounded eagerly toward Angela's car, Mark realized that this day would be etched in his memory forever, not only for its heartwarming moments but for how it transformed his relationship with Angela into something richer and more personal. With each step back toward their cars, Mark felt invigorated by the possibilities that lay ahead, not just in terms of his career but also in forging deeper connections built on empathy and compassion. Sometimes it takes an act of kindness to reveal what truly matters, relationships founded on mutual respect and understanding that can transform lives for the better. Today marked the beginning of a new chapter for both him and Angela. A chapter where kindness would pave the way for future friendships and opportunities to make a difference in the world around them. As Mark and Angela walked side by side, Daisy happily trotting along between them, he felt the warmth of the sun on his face and the lightness in his heart. The events of the day swirled in his mind like vibrant colors on a canvas, each brushstroke representing a moment of kindness that had come together to create something beautiful. Reflecting on how a simple act of wrapping his jacket around a shivering dog had unfolded into an unexpected adventure, Mark realized just how profound such small gestures could be. What started as an instinct to help an animal in need had led to a chain reaction of connections. First with Daisy, then with Angela, and even among their co-workers who had shared in the joy of the reunion. Mark smiled to himself as he thought about the power of compassion. That it was something he had always believed in but witnessed more vividly today. His earlier worries about how Angela would perceive him melted away, replaced by the understanding that acts of kindness can bridge gaps between people, fostering relationships that might otherwise remain superficial. "Do you think Daisy learned her lesson about wandering off?" Angela asked playfully, breaking him from his reverie. Mark chuckled, glancing down at Daisy, who looked back up at him with bright eyes, still buzzing from the affection she'd received. "Oh, I think she'll be sticking close after this. She knows who to turn to for cozy jackets now," he replied, laughter bubbling between them. Angela laughed too, and for a moment, they stood close together, enjoying the shared warmth of their conversation in a world that often seemed hurried and disconnected. This moment felt precious. It inspired Mark to consider how important it is to embrace these opportunities when they arise. Moments that remind us of what really matters in life. Kindness, connection, and understanding. As they approached the grocery store's checkout area filled with familiar faces, Mark's co-workers greeted them with knowing smiles. "Look who's become a hero today," one of them called out playfully. The light-hearted banter continued as they exchanged congratulations over Daisy's return, adding to the shared sense of joy around them. The ripple effects of his simple decision to help Daisy began to surface. It sparked conversations among co-workers about their own pets and experiences with lost animals. Mark found himself engaged in discussions filled with laughter and shared stories instead of the usual work-related banter. He recognized that this collective compassion created an atmosphere where everyone felt valued and connected. After finishing up their shopping and paying for some treats for Daisy, Angela turned to Mark with sincere eyes once again. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "acts like yours don't go unnoticed. This day has reminded me how important it is to take care of one another, whether it's a pet or a person." Mark nodded in agreement. Her words struck a chord within him that resonated deeply. "I believe that every small act counts," he replied earnestly. "You never know how much difference it can make for someone else." As they stepped outside into the bright sunlight together, Daisy pranced ahead, her energy infectious and full of life. Mark felt an invigorating sense of purpose wash over him. Today was not just about returning a lost dog, but about creating lasting bonds through kindness. A reminder that even small acts can spark significant change. With each step toward their cars, Mark reflected on how this experience would shape his future interactions. Both personally and professionally, he realized that embracing compassion could lead to deeper relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. An invaluable lesson learned through an innocent encounter at a bus stop as he waved goodbye to Angela and watched her drive away with Daisy happily resting in her lap. Mark couldn't shake off the feeling that this was just the beginning. Opportunities for kindness awaited him everywhere. All he needed to do was remain open-hearted and ready to respond when called upon in life's grand tapestry woven together by moments big and small. Mark knew he would carry this day with him as a reminder. Kindness has the power not just to change circumstances but also to transform lives and build connections that enrich our human experience. Today marked a meaningful chapter in his journey, one where he would continue embracing compassion and nurturing relationships forged through acts of kindness.